In this section we are going to build our very first Laravel package. And let me tell you right off the bat, in a Laravel package you can do anything that you can do in a project. So there are no limits as what a package can do. You can do whatever you want there. A package can have controllers, views, models, whatever type of class you want. If you haven't seen the videos on PHP package development, I highly encourage to do so first, as we are going to build upon the knowledge that is shared in those videos. In the previous videos, you've seen that we use a package skeleton to scaffold out a framework agnostic package. And you'll be happy to know that we also have a Laravel specific skeleton. And this skeleton is a great starting point for your next Laravel package. The first thing that you should do is to create your own repo with the contents of our skeleton. And like in the previous section, we are going to use this button, use this template. This is going to be another Spatie package, but of course you can pick your own owner. And I'm going to call this one Laravel example. I tend to prefix my Laravel packages with Laravel, but this isn't required at all. Name your package however you want it. I usually go for a very dry name that explains what the package is about, such as Laravel Google Analytics or Laravel Backup, but you could also opt to use a more promotional type of name. Let's give it a description. My first Laravel package, not because this isn't my first one. I'm going to make it public as I don't mind building things in public, but of course you could choose to go private. And we just need the main branch. So create repository from this template. Let GitHub do its thing. And now we have our new repo that was generated from our skeleton. Okay, let's clone this repository to our local environment. So let's run git clone. Let's step into that directory and open it up in PHP Storm. Let's go over some of the files in this skeleton. If you watched the previous video, most of these files should already be very familiar. But there are a few key differences. We have a config directory here, a database directory, and a resources directory. These directories will hold Laravel-specific things, such as views, migrations, factories, and more. In our source directory, we also have a little bit more than in the framework-agnostic skeleton. We have a command that is scaffolded, a facade, and a service provider. Let's take a look at our composer file, and you can see that we have some couple of extra things in our development requirements. The most important one is Orchestra Test Bench. This package is used for testing. It will make available a full Laravel application while testing. So in your test suite, you can test your code as if you were in a full Laravel application. In a next video, I'll show you a demo of that. If we scroll a little bit down, then you see that we have this extra section as well. It has a key Laravel, and inside it, the name of our service provider and facade. By specifying these class names here, Laravel will be able to auto-discover them. In older versions of Laravel, package users were required to register the service provider manually. But in all modern packages, this is handled automatically. And it works by specifying the service provider here in composer.json. When Laravel boots up, it will look into the composer.json of all packages, see if there is an extra Laravel key, and use that information. And you see skeleton being used here all over the place. This is just a placeholder. Like in the previous section of our course, we are going to run a configure script in a minute that will replace all of these placeholder values with your actual values. Let's maybe also take a look in the workflows directory. There is a run tests here, and there are some differences with the run test script from the PHP agnostic package. If we take a look at our matrix, we now also have a Laravel version here. If your package supports multiple versions, you can add another version here. And now the tests will be able to run for this version of Laravel as well, for all combinations in the matrix. Again, this was discussed in the previous section. If we take a look at the steps here, but in install dependencies, there's a difference. Here we are going to require the version of the framework that is mentioned in our matrix. And we're also going to use the specific version of TestBench that can handle that Laravel version. So here you can see that TestBench 6 will be used to test Laravel 8. For each major Laravel version, there's also a major TestBench version. Let's take a look at our pest.php config file. In the framework agnostic version of our skeleton, this pest file was empty. But here we are going to say that for each test in this test suite, we are going to use the test case class as the base test class. Let's take a look at test case. Here you see that test case extends from orchestra, and orchestra is an alias for the test case of orchestra. Again, what orchestra will do is that it will make available an entire Laravel application in your testing environment. And this will make it much easier to test Laravel specific code. We'll cover that in a next video. Here we are going to set up some Laravel specific things. So we are going to say to Laravel, hey, if there's a factory for a model, take a look in this namespace. And that namespace is in this directory. In get package providers, our service provider is mentioned. This will let Orchestra load the service provider whenever we run tests. Orchestra needs to do this because package auto-discovery of Laravel doesn't work in a testing environment. There's a get environment setup method that is used to customize the environment to your liking. And by default, we are going to use the testing database connection in Laravel, which is a connection that is there by default, and it uses an in-memory SQLite database. We also have some placeholder code here to load up a migration, but I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. Okay, those were the key differences when comparing against the framework agnostic skeleton. Now let's run that configure script. So php configure php. The author name should be my full name. That's my email address. My username is Freek Murze. The vendor name is Spatie. The vendor namespace is Spatie with a capital. The package name is indeed Laravel example. The class name, it can be example. As a description, we can use this is an example package. That looks good to me. Let's also run composer install and run the tests. The configure script may delete itself because we don't need it anymore. And there seems to be a problem running the tests. So let me try to do that manually, vendor bin pest. And they seem to be running fine this way. I'll figure out why this failed the first time. And by the time that you use our skeleton, this problem will probably already be resolved. Now let's commit this, configure package, and let's push it up to GitHub. Nice, we've made our first steps creating a Laravel package. In the next video, we are going to dive a little bit deeper.